I played football for, 7 or 8 seasons growing up, and football is probably my favorite sport to play. It was my favorite sport to play back when I played sports competitively. But I actually played baseball more as a kid, age 4 through 17. And, I have a love and appreciation for both sports. I think both, from a very broad sense, are similar in the fact that there's a lot of tactics involved in both, a lot of little nuts and bolts that make the games great. But one stark difference I've always found is the mental approach of the players. There's all these famous speeches pregame of getting players hyped up to go onto the field as a leader of the team.
Everybody's comfortable in the shallow end with 2 feet on the ground, all right? We live in the deep water. Woo! We live in the deep water where it's uncomfortable, where it hurts a little bit. Yeah. That's where we live. And I'm not talking about playing hard. Everybody talks about playing hard. I'm talking about straining your guts.
When I played, I got myself into the mindset where I was ready to physically assault another human being, because that's essentially what you're doing, especially when you're a lineman like I was. Baseball is more tactical in its approach. As a player, do I sit fastball? Do I go to my 2-strike swing when I'm behind in the count? As a pitcher, how much time do I take on the mound? Do I check to first? As a catcher, what sign should I put down? Where do we want to locate this next pitch? Now, while I believe most sports fans would agree with my assessment of how those sports are approached mentally by the players, there are exceptions to every rule. I've seen tactful football players, especially at the quarterback or special teams positions, and I've seen fiery competitors on a baseball diamond. But even rarer than that, there are a select few baseball players in the history of the sport that attack baseball with the same type of "I want to assault you" mentality that you find on a football field. And I think perhaps the greatest example of that is Albert Belle.
There it is, Vina. Oh, this is just like the play in the 3rd inning. And it was Albert Belle.
About $1 billion, all for the love of drug dealing. Got no love for the other side, fuck them tricks. Any repercussions, Junior Mafia spit clip all the time. Big Papa kick the raw rhymes, raw flows, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, cause you can't knock the hustle.
The 1990s are synonymous with the home run in Major League Baseball through a combination of both talented players and illicit substance abuse. And the numbers are there to back this claim up. In the 1990s, teams averaged 146.63 home runs per season, 14 more than in any decade prior. That number is made even more impressive when you consider the 1994 season, when a player's strike took around 50 games away from each MLB team. Now, when people recall this decade of power-hitting dominance in the major leagues, a few sluggers usually pop into mind. Baseball's home run king, Barry Bonds. Beloved 5-tool superstar, King Griffey Jr. Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, whose home run chase in 1998 for the single-season record forever rewrote the history of the sport. Other names are there too. One of the Bash brothers, Jose Canseco. 2-time MVP Juan Gonzalez. The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas. The Crime Dog, Fred McGriff. But amongst all of these names, the player who hit the 4th most home runs in the 1990s was none other than outfielder Albert Belle. But because of the power-hitting stardom around the league at that time, He's kind of a forgotten name outside of the 3 cities he played for, Cleveland, Chicago, and Baltimore. And that's a real shame, because he was one tough son of a bitch.
I guess he was either 17th to hit 3 in a game.
Yep. Albert's last one came, 3-home run day, that is, in a Cleveland Indian uniform, and Hasegawa came up and in and hit Albert Belle.
It's July 25th, 1999. Albert's playing for the Baltimore Orioles now and facing Anaheim Angels pitcher Shigetoshi Hasegawa in the bottom of the 11th inning in a tie game. He's very clearly been hit by a pitch. Let's see what his response is.
And Albert obviously not pleased, or did it hit him? Yeah, Ed Hickox is saying you've got to go to first base.
Well, we've seen this in the past. There was an occasion where Albert Belle swore he wasn't hit by a pitch and refused to take first base. He's saying, I'm staying in the box. I'm not going. I think the ball went off his bat, but he's not going to first base. I can't remember exactly who the pitcher was, but he refused to go to first base after being hit. I want to hit.
The thing that really cracks me up about this whole encounter is that a hit by pitch really helps out the Orioles here. There's a man on first with 1 out in the bottom of the 11th in a tie game. Moving that runner into scoring position is huge. And Albert still doesn't want to take first. He wants to bat that runner in himself. If I had to show somebody one play to describe Albert Belle, it would be that one. Because it sums up who he was perfectly. See, Joey, as was his nickname, was always out to prove something. Belle thought he should have been a major leaguer out of high school, but all the scouts passed on him and it drove him for the rest of his career. His university of choice to disprove these detractors was LSU, where Coach Skip Bertman recognized his talent right away. After Belle was through there, the manager once told a newspaper he expected plenty of calls when the outfielder hit 60 home runs. Belle also despised his time with the Tigers. He once told a profiler, LSU, don't ever associate me with that place. All the future developments of Belle's major league career can be sourced from his days at LSU. First, his superior talent and determination. In just 3 seasons, he set 7 school records, including the career marks for home runs, RBI, runs, and hits. Second, his baseball intelligence and insane work ethic. His twin brother Terry played with him in Baton Rouge, and Albert often forced his sibling to stay after practice, making a second dorm out of LSU's batting cage. When he hit off a tee, he'd do it from the corners of the plate rather than the middle where most batters do it. Why? Well, that's where pitchers are taught to throw. And finally, his antics beyond the field of play. Belle got benched for outbursts and was once suspended for throwing team equipment, but one story stands out from his collegiate escapades. It's the conference championships Belle's final year at LSU. A fan is taunting him throughout the game, tossing out slurs and being downright nasty. Finally, Belle's had enough. He turns, leaps over the fencing and into the stands, then starts chasing the fan around the ballpark. 2 teammates tackle him in the nick of time, but Belle was forever earmarked, perhaps rightfully so, as a fiery competitor with a tendency to let the flames burn out of control. Atlanta Braves executives were told they'd be fired if they drafted him. His stock falls. But he was too talented for one pit of misery to look past. The Cleveland Indians. Quick disclaimer, Cleveland's baseball team changed its name from the Indians this year based off concerns of how it might affect the Native American community. They were called the Cleveland Indians when Albert Belle played there, so I will be referring to them as the Cleveland Indians in this video. It's not meant as an offense to anyone, past or present. Now back to the action. As anyone who's followed the team for a while probably knows, there's a reason Cleveland was willing to put up with Belle's temper in exchange for his talent.
Much like Belle, the Indians took time to get off the ground once they drafted the hothead from Louisiana State. The summer of 1987, after Belle was drafted, he earned a suspension from the Cape Cod League after a long string of arguments with fans, umpires, teammates, about anyone you could imagine. The Indians lost 101 games. In 1988, Belle slashed .293, .360, and .536 in the minors, but his season in the Mexico League was cut short when, in the midst of another made out during a slump, he grabbed a catcher's mask and launched it into the crowd. Cleveland finished next to last in the AL East and won a combined 21-34 in June and July. In 1989, Belle and the Indians showed promise, with the former finishing at a respectable .664 OPS in his 62-game rookie season, and the latter moving on to a new manager to combat another sixth-place finish in the AL East. Then came 1990. Forget the Indians. This was one of Belle's toughest years. Belle opened his season in the majors, batted .174 in 9 games, and earned a ticket back down to AAA. It wasn't long before he smashed a clubhouse sink and threw another of his infamous tantrums on the field. Not only was Belle picking up suspensions for his anger, it was his lack of effort too. Multiple times at different levels, managers benched him for showing a lack of hustle. And soon Belle and his team identified what they thought to be the source: alcohol. Belle had been abusing it for a while. Why? It's hard to ever know the reason for things Belle did. Needles in haystacks are easier to find than a story where Belle truly opens up to somebody. We do have his statement at the time from his release from rehab. Quote, "My name is Albert Belle, and I have been in treatment for alcoholism at the Cleveland Clinic. While in the clinic, I discovered that I have had problems with concentration, motivation, attitude, and temper. I have found a new way of life through the clinic's program and a 12-step recovery plan. Perhaps it was the pressure, perhaps it was something more personal. Either way, Belle kicked the habit, for the time being, and changed his preferred name from Joey to Albert."
That very public name change is probably what made it even more insulting when the season after Belle was released from rehab, a fan yelled at him from the stands while he was fielding a foul ball.
"Hey, Joey! Cake party at my place tonight!"
Now, you're probably not going to believe me, but I have acquired the services of a very special guest to demonstrate what happened next.
Oh, yeah, bring that shit on, man. Oh, good, I love it.
Alright, my instructions to Mr. Gilmore weren't all that clear, and that's probably on me. See, when Albert Belle picked up the foul ball that day and threw it at the fan, he was standing 15 feet away from him, not 60 like the pitching machine in that clip. That man left the stadium that day with a large purple welt on his chest and probably the story of a lifetime, if we're being real.
It was soon clear that while Belle's alcoholism could be controlled, his rage would never subside. But for now in Cleveland, all was well. With the booze banished, Belle became one of the best batters in all of baseball. As already noted, Belle hit the 4th most home runs in a decade synonymous with it. Belle, in fact, spent 8 consecutive seasons from 1992 through 1999, hitting at least 30 long balls. He's also one of just 29 players in the history of the MLB to blast at least 50 home runs in one season. But to pigeonhole him as a pure power hitter ignores his intelligence, plate discipline, and situational excellence in the batter's box.
For those that aren't familiar with baseball statistics, OPS is kind of a nice way to boil down a hitter's effectiveness into one digestible number. All it does is add 2 classical baseball statistics, the first being on-base percentage, which is the percentage of times a batter gets on base, and slugging percentage, which is the number of bases a batter earns per plate appearance with his bat. And by doing that, you get a sense of not only how often someone's getting on base, but how hard they're hitting the ball. An OPS of 700 is considered about at league average. You're an okay hitter. maybe starter quality if you hit a 700 OPS, and then 800 and 900 is considered that good to great range. Hitting a 1000 OPS is something only a couple hitters, if any, do each season.
This is a chart of every single qualified hitter's OPS from 1991 through 1999. Keep in mind the numbers we talked about earlier, 700 being starter quality, 1,000 meaning a great year. Let's see where Albert Belle landed. As you can see, he was typically near or above that 1,000 mark. He picked up 5 All-Star appearances in this time frame, and landed 5 Silver Slugger awards as the best hitting left fielder in the American League. He hit above .310 4 times, rare for someone hitting his amount of home runs. And the thing about Albert Belle's production is that it often came at opportune times for his team. He led the American League in runs batted in 3 different years, with 7 seasons above 110 RBIs.
And upon the rough rock of their seething slugger, the Indians began building a juggernaut.
Stranger in the black sedan, won't you hop inside my car? I got pictures, got candy, I'm a lovable man, and I can take you to the nearest star. I'm your vehicle, baby, I'll take you anywhere you wanna go. I'm your vehicle, woman, by now I'm sure you know that I love you, I need you, I want you, got to have your child. Great God in heaven, you know I love you.
Unscripted Outro Andy here. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And make sure you hit that bell too so you don't miss part 2. Hopefully I'll get that to you in the next month or so here. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Have a great day.